showing 3:01, so if you're ready to go, we can get started.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Regional Flood Control District Clark County Citizen Advisory Committee meeting of February 1st. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Parrish, as this is a Zoom-type meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for logging in today. I want to start with some housekeeping reminders, as I normally do. As we go through the agenda, we request any committee members wishing to make a comment, ask a question, or make a motion that you say your name for the record. We'll open the floor for questions after presenting each item. Also, after a motion is made and a vote is called for, each committee member will verbally vote. If the vote is unanimous, that will be noted. If there are any nay votes, then a roll call will be initiated to accurately identify the vote for the record. This meeting was properly posted and noticed in accordance with the Declaration of Emergency Directive 006 issued by Governor Sisolak on March 22nd, 2020, and subsequent directives extending this directive until an end to the Declaration of Emergency is issued. The directives suspend the requirement contained in NRS 241 for a physical location to be provided for meetings of public bodies. Pursuant to Directive 006, a physical location has not been provided for this meeting. A live stream of the meeting is available at the website posted on the meeting notice. An email address, publiccomment@regionalflood.org, has been provided in the notice of public meeting to allow the public to participate in this meeting. This email address will be monitored during the meeting should any member of the public wish to participate in the final public comment period. Any comments received during or prior to or during the meeting will be read into the record and become part of the permanent record. With that, we'll begin with the voice roll call to verify the members present on the call. You can make sure the members not on mute. Please respond when you hear your name is called. And we'll start with Chair Ron Newell. Chair Ron Newell, are you off mute?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Present.
You're present. Vice Chair Bill Stormer.
Present.
James Houtz. Herschel Desai. Jim Giordano.
Present.
Brian Wilson.
Present.
Norm Ashford.
Present.
Karina Berrigan.
Present.
And I think I just saw Herschel log in. Herschel, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm online. Sorry for being late.
No problem. I show 7 members present, and we do have a quorum. Item number 1, next slide, please. Item number 1 is comments by the general public. As noticed on the agenda posting, comments by the general public regarding items on the agenda were to be posted to public comment at regionalflood.org. Jackie or Tammy, did we have any public comments?
Mr. Chair, for the record, there are no, Jackie Ramirez, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Item 2 is action to approve the agenda with the deletion of any items. The agenda is in order for approval. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Bill Stormer, City of Las Vegas, move to approve the minutes as printed.
Oh, I think we're on the agenda. The approval of the agenda.
The agenda.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Bill Stormer. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Next slide. Item 3 is action to approve the minutes of the January 4, 2021 meeting. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Herschel Desai, City of Henderson, motion to approve the minutes of the January 4th, 2021 meeting.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Herschel Desai. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Next slide, please. Item 4 is action to accept the financial reports. Mr. Chair, the report is in your backup. did receive the sales tax for November of 2020. If you could click to the next slide. And one more. One more click, please. Thank you. To summarize the budgeted amount for the sales tax for November was approximately $8.8 million. The actual receipts came in at just under 8.7 million, which is a difference of about $126,000 or about 1.44% below what we estimated. If you click again, Tammy. And one more. The total receipts so far in the fiscal year sum up to a little over $43 million. One more click, which is about $218,000 over what we have estimated, or about 0.51%. So you can see that we're pretty much coming in right about what we estimated, although the estimates were lower than than last year. We are coming in about what we've estimated in our budget, which is good news. And if you could go to the next slide, Tammy. And this is the rolling sales tax chart that was requested by the CAC to be added a few months ago, showing each bar on this graph represents the sum of the prior 12 months of sales tax. So you can see things kind of dropped initially beginning in February, going down to about May, and then it kind of started to not go as steep, which we would expect. We're probably going to see declines in this for another several months until we start comparing or including all of the sums of the 12 months beyond the closures. So I'm expecting this to continue dropping some before we'll start seeing it rise back up. With that, staff would recommend you accept the report. Any questions or discussion? Entertain a motion.
This is Jim Giordano. I'll make a motion to accept the financial reports.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to accept the financial reports from Jim Giordano. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. And that motion carries unanimously. Next slide, please. Item 5 is action to adopt amendments to the 10-year construction program. Mr. Chair, these are amendments for fiscal impacts that occur later in the agenda. Staff recommends approval. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Setting
Renewal,
up,
Clark County, move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor for approval from Ron Newell. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that motion carries unanimously. Next slide, please. Item 6 is action to approve the second amendment to the professional services agreement with ICF Jones and Stokes, Inc. to extend the project completion date for the future development of regional in-lieu mitigation program for future flood control master plan projects. Mr. Chair, as part of our 404 permitting process with the Corps, we often have to mitigate impacts to waters of the U.S. that result from our projects. To that end, we've hired ICF Jones and Stokes to help us develop a new mitigation bank because we're running low on credits with the existing mitigation bank. This item is just to extend the completion date of that project, which is ongoing. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Bill Starmer, City of Las Vegas. Move to approve item number 6.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Bill Starmer. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Item 7 is action to approve and authorize the general manager to sign the first amendment to the agreement for professional services between Arcadis US Inc. and the district to fund the development of site-specific criteria for selenium in Las Vegas Wash. Mr. Chair, this is a contract that we've entered into with Arcadis to help us develop a selenium standard for the Las Vegas Wash. We're going into the tier 2 of that process where we have to actually capture fish in the wash and test them. So we're asking for $179,800 in addition to the original agreement for a total of $279,000. That's to give the district authority to expend that money. Most of this money is being paid for out of an agreement we have with the Las Vegas Valley Watershed Advisory Committee, and also we're getting some grant money from the state of Nevada, the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. So staff would recommend approval of this item. Any discussion or questions? Entertain a motion.
Format Pursuer Mesquite. Move to approve item number 7.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Norm Ashford. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that motion carries unanimously. Slide 2, thank you. Item 8 is action to adopt the flood control master plan update for the Muddy River and tributaries. Mr. Chair, this is the 5-year update. We're required by NRS to update our master plans every 5 years. So the Muddy River is due this year. We do have a presentation prepared for this item. And so Brian, when you're ready, if you can take yourself off mute and you can begin your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Audio is good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Rowley. I'm a principal civil engineer with the district, and I was responsible for helping to lead the effort internally to update the 2020 flood control master plan update for the Muddy River and tributary washes. One disclaimer before we get started, I'm here working remotely with my 6 children who are doing distance learning with the school district. So at any time I may get shot by a Nerf dart gun. And if that happens, I will try to push through the pain and finish the presentation. So fair warning. The district, we completed much of this update internally with our own staff, but we worked closely with Clark County Public Works, as well as their maintenance group. And we also had support from Atkins Consulting Firm, who helped us with some of the modeling and analysis and report production tasks. Next slide, please. This master plan is the required update that we do every 5 years. It's basically a chance for us to assess the progress that's been made during the past 5 years, make sure that the data is current, and a chance to recommend any changes. The first update for this area was completed back in 1988, so this will be the 7th time since then that the master plan has been updated. The last time it was updated was in 2016. Next slide. We worked with the, we get the next slide? There we go. We worked with the county to provide a full update to the master plan. Some of the typical steps we go through are shown on this slide, starting with field investigations and collecting the data. Then we go through some modeling and analysis work. We take a good look at the plan to make sure that the recommendations are adequate and meet the needs. And then finally, we develop cost estimates. Next slide. This slide shows the study area out there. If you're not familiar with the study area covered in this particular master plan, it's shown here. So it's the area of Moapa, north of I-15, and Moapa Valley, south of I-15, which we kind of divide up into what we call the western washes and the eastern washes, and then the lower Muddy River down the middle of the valley. If you click the next button, I think that will show up in the area of Moapa. There were no changes needed in this area. There's been little development in this area, so our plan didn't need to be updated, and basically we're recommending still that this area be managed according to FEMA standards, and that we'll monitor the development as it occurs to see if any future facilities might be needed. But for now, no changes were done in that area. And then if you click again, Moapa Valley, these are locations where we did have a few changes. So I'll go ahead in the next couple minutes and just describe what those updates were, if you can go to the next slide. So this image starts kind of at the northern end of town, up in the Logandale area. And so I'll just kind of work north to south and describe a couple of these changes. First, in the northwest, there up in the upper left in blue, One of the things that we're happy to report in terms of progress is that the Logandale levee construction was completed in 2018. So that's shown in blue, which means now it's an existing regional facility. It's in place and functioning, and we were able to remove some of the FEMA flood zone behind that levee. So that was a good update. Over on the right in green, that's shown in green because we've modified this facility. And basically what we did is just make sure that this is consistent with the latest design plans for that project. Currently, that fairgrounds detention basin and outfall facility is in the final stages of design. We expect that to go to construction later this year. So we just took the chance to make sure our plan was consistent with the design plans that will be built later on this year. The other change shown in green along Goobler Avenue, we just basically modified that facility slightly. We made it extend farther upstream with a bigger facility, just so that we have some flexibility when that actually gets designed to collect some flows in that area. Next slide. Down in the southern part of the valley, this is really where the most significant change happened. So I'll talk about that. This facility shown in yellow along Ingram Avenue. That is where we added a new planned or proposed regional facility that is basically connects that Western Washes channel shown in red, and then it connects there to intercept the flow and goes from west to east to convey that over directly to the Muddy River. So that is the yellow facility, a new proposed part of the plan. And then downstream of there in green, those facilities were previously proposed, but we had to make them bigger in order to accommodate the future flow. So those are all, none of those are built yet. Those are all just modifications to the planned facilities in the future. But by doing this, that gives us a chance to intercept the flow and convey it straight to the river. We can build this project in a phased approach, and we don't need to complete everything all at once on the western side. So that was a good change, and based on input from Clark County to fix some of the drainage problems that they have in that area. And then finally, at the lower part of the screen in green, based on the changes described above, the yellow facility in Ingram Avenue, then we were able to remove some of those facilities. That's what the dashed line is. Those are no longer needed because of that change. And then the green facilities at the bottom that we're calling the Western Washes Overton Wash, those were renamed, and basically it's an independent system that can be built as a standalone project in that area. Next slide. The last slide in here is just the cost estimates that were developed as part of the update. So the total cost, the total value of the existing facilities in this master plan area is $37.4 million. And the estimated cost for the proposed facilities is $158.6 million. Next slide. The staff recommends approval of this item. I'll let you talk a little more about that action, but that's shown here on the screen. I think if you go to the next slide, we have a picture of our Logandale levee construction that was completed. So you can see that at the upstream end, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Brian?
This is Jim Giordano. Thank you, Brian. That was good. I just had one question. So that for that 158 million, it looked like there's at least 6 or 7 detention basins that still needed to be built. Is that right?
Yes, there are, yeah.
That's the major component of what is left.
Yeah, well, there's anything shown in red, and even the green facilities are proposed. I mean, there's a significant amount of work that can be done in terms of the overall plan out there.
Yeah, really, the Muddy River is probably one of the highest cost items left to build. We built portions of it already, but there's quite a bit left to do, and that's a high dollar, especially in terms of getting right away. It's a high dollar.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there's no other questions, staff would recommend that you follow the staff recommendation as listed in the backup in this item. Any discussion?
Herschel Desai, City of Henderson. 2 things. One, great presentation, Brian. And second, that I would like to abstain myself from voting on this item. since Atkins was involved in supporting the district to prepare this master plan.
Thanks, Harshal. Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve Karina Barragan, City of North Las Vegas, item number 8. Yeah.
Yes. Just to clarify, your motion is to follow staff recommendation as listed in the backup.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to follow the staff recommendation as listed in the backup. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously with 1 abstention. Item 9 is action to approve the supplemental interlocal contracts for construction to extend the project completion date for the following projects. Item 9A is first supplemental, Pittman Tabco, Boulder Highway Crossing, City of Henderson. Item 9B is second supplemental, Las Vegas Wash Moccasin, Sky Canyon Park to Upper Las Vegas Wash, City of Las Vegas. And item 9C is second supplemental, Flamingo, Boulder Highway North, Boulder Highway Sahara to Charleston, City of Las Vegas. Mr. Chair, these 3 items are just to extend the contract date for each of these 3 projects. Item 9A is actually completed construction, so we're just needing a little more time to close out the interlocal contract. Item 9B just began construction, so we need a little more time to complete the construction and then eventually close that contract out. And then item 9C, similarly to A, is the project's been completed, the construction's been completed, and they just need to finalize the bills and get the as-bills done to close out that project. Staff recommends approval of items 9A, B, and C. Any discussion?
Harshal Desai, City of Henderson, would like to abstain on 9C, considering Atkins, who is my employer, was involved in the design of this project.
Okay. Thanks, Harshal. Entertain a motion.
Norm Ashford, City of Mesquite. Move to approve 9A, B, and C.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor for approval of items 9A, B, and C from Norm Ashford. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously with 1 abstention from item 9C. Next slide, thank you. Item 10 is action to approve the second supplemental interlocal contract for design to increase funding and add a line item for design engineering for Cary Lake Mead Detention Basin outfall modification. Mr. Chair, this item adds $75,000 to the design engineering line item. It actually adds a line item for design engineering, and we're moving money from entity design labor costs, $60,000 to that line item, and then we're increasing the value of the contract by $15,000, which is the fiscal impact. They're essentially moving money into the design line item to account for changes in the way they're handling the design of this project. Staff recommends approval. Any discussion?
Karina Barragan. I work for Pogo Myers, so I'd like to abstain from voting on this item as we are working on this project.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Any other discussion? Entertain a motion.
Ron Newell, move for approval.
There's a motion on the floor for approval from Ron Newell. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. And that motion carries unanimously with 1 abstention. Next slide, thank you. Item 11 is action to approve the second supplemental interlocal contract for design to increase funding and add a line item for right-of-way acquisition for Town Wash, Mesa Boulevard, El Dorado to Town Wash. Mr. Chair, the City of Mesquite needed to get some right-of-way through a parking lot to build this structure. They've been negotiating with the property owner, and I think they've come to an agreement on the cost. So they're asking for $32,600 to pay for that right of way. Staff recommends approval. Any discussion?
Herschel Desai, City of Henderson, would like to abstain from this item also. Atkins was involved in the design of this project.
Okay, thanks, Herschel. Entertain a motion?
Jim Giordano, City of Henderson, I'll make the motion to approve item number 11.
There's a motion on the floor for approval from Jim Giordano. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Item 12 is action to approve the 4 supplemental interlocal contract for construction to decrease funding for Centennial Parkway Channel West, US 95, CC 215 to Grand Teton, and US 95 crossing at Kyle Canyon Road, City of Las Vegas. Mr. Chair, this project has completed construction. It was done in conjunction with the NDOT project to widen US 95. There was money that's still in the contract that is not going to be used, but while they're waiting for the project to close out, they agreed to return this money to us so we can use it for other projects. This will return approximately, well, it will return $2,340,014.30. Staff recommends approval. Any discussion? Entertain a motion?
Ron Newell, motion to approve.
Motion on the floor for approval from Ron Newell. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Next slide. Item 13 is action to approve the second supplemental interlocal contract for construction to increase funding and add a line item for entity construction management labor costs for Hemingway System Phase 2B improvements, City of Boulder City. Mr. Chair, this is a supplement with a fiscal impact of $534,766. The bulk of that is to cover the low bid that came in on this project. The city is also requesting a little bit of extra money for the construction management, and they're adding a line item for construction management labor costs for internal labor. Staff recommends approval. Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Herschel Desai, City of Henderson, motion to approve item number 13.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Herschel Desai. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Next slide, please. Item 14 is action to approve the third of 4 renewal options for the professional services contract with Robertson Partners for the 2021 flood safety advertising campaign. Take action as deemed appropriate. Mr. Chair, as mentioned in the item, this is the third of 4 renewal options for our flood safety advertising campaign. We have Scott Robertson on the call today, who will provide a brief presentation on the flood safety campaign. Scott, when you're ready, if you could unmute and you can begin your presentation. And if you're talking, we can't.
It's still on mute, Scott.
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Now?
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thanks. Sorry about that. I'm Scott Robertson, principal at Robertson Partners. I just want to let everybody know that I too am under imminent threat of a Nerf gun attack, so please be on high alert. Our agency has a 30-plus year partnership with the Regional Flood Control District in protecting towards the mission of protecting life and property in Clark County. The agency has deep experience and subject matter expertise and enjoyed just a really great working relationship and rapport with the staff and leadership team over at the Flood Control District. Wanted to thank Steve and Andrew and Aaron and Jesse for their partnership. During the time we've been working together, next slide, we have had a ton of success in terms of not only raising awareness for the dangers of flash flooding, but also our work has been awarded on local, regional, and national levels. I'll just give you a quick snapshot of the last 3 years. Our campaign it's evolved. Some of the awards we've won: 2020, the National Association of Flood and Storm Management Agencies, first place for public awareness of flooding for our VR campaign, Addy Gold Awards, District Awards, also for our Stormwater PSA, another campaign we did, and Water Always Wins campaign. So next slide. In 2019, going further, we had Award of Excellence for new digital platforms. One of the things the staff has always pushed us to do is make sure we innovate in the creative we produce to make sure that we're evolving with all the new media channels out there. So we're doing everything from virtual reality to TikTok to you name it. We won the Pinnacle Award, the Award of Excellence, just a ton of awards. Next slide. I won't belabor it much further, but we also, in 2018, won a slew of local Pinnacle PR awards for the Regional Flood Control District. Next slide. The way we've always approached working with the Flood District is a phased approach. And what I mean by that is we have different campaigns and different audiences and objectives. And what we like to do is be very good stewards of the public's budget. So what we do is each year, subsequent year in our contract, we try to build in a new creative production deliverable and save the bulk of the money, though, for putting it into the media and making sure the public sees this. So we don't come out and just do it all at once. We try to add and layer on new elements, also addressing new and evolving media every year. And in the past 4 years, prior to this year, we're looking to be renewed. We changed the brand campaign from, some of you have been around long enough to remember the license plate campaign we ran for a long time, which is kind of famous in town. We evolved that to this Water Always Wins campaign, which sort of told people that it's a gamble you never want to take driving through floodwaters because you'll lose. In year 2, we added virtual reality campaign to the mix. And the 3rd year, we added a stormwater PSA to discourage polluting here into storm drains, reminding consumers that goes straight to Lake Mead. And more recently, in the last year, we added an entire new element to the campaign, which is aimed at families, mothers and kids, to keep kids out of storm drains and washes. So we're talking about lots of different subjects, not just keeping motorists out of floodwaters at this point. And this animated campaign, we introduced this new mascot called Dranger Danger, and he's been on TikTok and Facebook and all over social media and has been wildly successful. And we're going to talk about evolving that campaign to an overarching umbrella campaign. Next slide. So again, in the phases, I just kind of went through it all. So here was that first one, Water Always Wins campaign. Don't drive through flooded streets. We are out there and out of home. Outdoor is a big medium for reaching motorists. We're in television, we're in radio, we're on every digital channel you can think of. And we're also even at like gas station where you fuel up your vehicle at gas station pumps and other ambient media sources. Next slide. Phase 2, as I mentioned, was that virtual reality campaign where we leveraged emerging media. And this was really aimed at risk-taking youth. When we would do awareness studies, we'd always find out that most people got the fact that it floods and you shouldn't drive through it. But new residents and young kids were always the ones who either didn't know or wanted to take a risk. So we created VR, which is the world these kids live in, to get these visceral reactions and drive unpaid organic growth and sharing. And to date, and this is only a few years old, we have over 5 million views of this virtual reality experience. So this has been wildly successful. And next slide. Phase 3 was that stormwater PSA where we remind people the stuff they throw in storm drains ends up going to Lake Mead. And we reminded them that Lake Mead is actually the source of our water supply. So it's probably not a good idea. And so the message here was don't litter in storm drains. Next slide. And then the Dranger Danger character was introduced, again, as I mentioned, to expand beyond motors to families and parents and kids and tell them never play in storm drains. Next slide. And here's just a little bit of look, because that's the latest at that storyboard. If you haven't seen it, it was all over digital. Like a young child enters a storm, is near a storm drain in a wash. It starts to rain, and then the skeleton character we call Dranger Danger comes out of nowhere to sing the song about rats and cats and broken glass and all the things in the storm drain that can take you away and be harmful. And the kid wises up, realizes he shouldn't be there, and takes off. And you have the message: storm drains are no place to play. Next slide. We also got into TikTok, new media that's been blowing up out there, and with a bunch of 4 different videos where he's mimicking doing dances and all the things young kids are doing to get them to share. And to date on this campaign, we had 2.4 million digital impressions. On TikTok alone, we had 1.59 million impressions and 425,000 YouTube views, impressions, sorry. So this thing is really catchy and kind of taken off. So again, we want to expand that. So next slide. In this next year, this 5th year, what we're looking to do from a creative perspective is evolve it. We've been on the Water Always Wins campaign, which has been a great campaign, but it's been out there. It's going into it would be 4 years now. So we think it's time to refresh that. And in talking with the staff, we really all were excited about the Dranger Danger character and how catchy it was and cutting through the clutter. And so what we want to do is evolve this campaign to come up with new creative that's going to be aimed at motorists and a broader campaign message beyond just the kids and the storm drains. So that's what we're planning to do the next year if the contract is re-awarded. Next slide. And so for 2021, the key campaign elements include production of a new campaign creative, as I just mentioned, and those elements of that campaign would be TV, radio, outdoor, digital, virtual reality, social media, emerging channels, and new technologies as we decide upon them together. So they'll be integrating it into all new media, and we will achieve a comprehensive flood safety campaign alignment amongst all the different target audiences and the launching pad potentially for phases 1 through 3 in potential future contracts to extend this idea into the future. And next slide. The budget for the campaign overall is $995,000. And it breaks out, as you can see there, across digital, experiential, out-of-home, TV, radio, print, ambient, and non-traditional media with a slight contingency. And next slide. That concludes the presentation. Any questions on the campaign or budget?
Brian Wilson, City of Las Vegas. I wasn't here. I was just appointed last year to this committee. So first of all, love the characters, love the media impression, love the presentation. Just as a point of reference to have it on the record here, what is the cost change for 2021 versus previous years? And as a second part, separate question, just so we don't talk over each other. This is going into the 4th year now. Do we have any kind of metrics on the success of the campaigns outside of viewership? You know, for example, emergency flood response calls per 100,000 people or emergency responses per year. In other words, we know the people are looking at it, but are they getting the message? Do we have any metric that shows that the message is being successful?
Thank you for the question, Brian. This is Ellen Neff. I'm the district's communications manager. And I can tell you there is no change in answer to your first question in the cost of this budget. This is the same amount as last year. It is, in fact, the same amount as when we started this current contract 3 years ago. So there's no change in that. In answer to your second question, there's a host of ways we look at the success of the campaign. We do not look at emergency calls because, frankly, Mother Nature has not been cooperating with us for the past 2 years in giving us any flash flood events, but many flash flood events, I should say. I will tell you, however, that we do look at metrics outside just the views and the hits. And those include a survey of residents that we conduct every 2 years, where we ask people if they've seen the messaging and we try to drill down into finding out if the messaging is in fact changing their behavior. What we are seeing in those surveys is that people are changing their behavior slowly, but it is happening, and I will be happy to share those surveys with you. In addition, I'll be happy to share our internal metrics that we use to track the success of this. I can forward that to the entire committee or to you separately, however it makes sense.
Thank you very much. I'd love to see that. And thank you for the answer.
Harshad Desai, City of Henderson. Great presentation. Couple of questions. One, as part of the television cost or television advertisement, does it include any connected TV advertising like the data-driven advertising or OTT or OTT as in over-the-top advertising, or it's just straight television advertising? That's question one. And question two is of the 995,000, what's the amount for advertising, buying the advertising slots on different media versus the production dollars?
Okay, so on the first question, OTT, yes, we are. And Pam, our media director, is on the call. Did you want to expand on that a little, Pam?
Sure, I can expand. This is Pam with Robertson Partners. I oversee media. Yes, we're part of connected TV and OTT in-app viewing, mobile viewing, especially for Danger. We focused also on those that access through game consoles, knowing that that's a big way that teens obtain their OTT and connected TV messaging. We also did just for Water Always Wins as well, and put the additional layers of segmenting and audiences on that. So yes, that's a big portion of our campaign.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And on the, sorry. On the,
Go
on
ahead,
the fee,
Scott.
yeah, sorry, on the fee side, well, it can vary a little bit. I'd say roughly the media is 60 to 70%. Production could be 10 to 25, depending on what we're doing that year, and fees in around the range of 20%.
Okay, thanks.
And for the record, that was Pam Payne, Payne, with Robertson Partners.
Just Jim Giordano with the City of Henderson. I had one quick question, just something that I hadn't heard before. When you were talking about the media on TikTok and YouTube, you were talking about there being a difference between impressions and views. I was just curious as to what an impression was.
Pam Payne, you want to go deep?
Sure. This is Pam Payne again with Robertson. Impressions is when the ad is served, and views is watching it. So if you notice on YouTube, sometimes you have the ability to skip an ad. We don't pay for it. When you skip an ad, it is still triggered as an impression. You were still served the ad, you still saw it. But when you choose to skip, we do not pay. We only pay when you fully view.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Ron Newell, Clark County. Did we get a rebate for the 8 months of no rain last year?
It's not my fault. Hey, when it did rain, people were ready for it.
Nobody got
All
one.
right.
You know, it's funny though, on a serious note, Steve and Aaron and I have talked about this before. When we do have these periods without rain, it actually creates a greater need to advertise, because the lack of rain creates that people forget about the dangers of the flooding when it's less prevalent. And so we've actually found out that's when it rains less, the awareness of dangers in our surveys over the past can go down.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions? I will say I took a survey of one, and I asked my teenage daughter to look at the TikTok project, and she loved it. She liked the mirror wipe in particular and some of the dance moves. So if I can get a smile out of my daughter on one of these, then I'm in pretty good shape. So the TikTok, I can say, is a success to get to the teenage age group. So this is a fiscal impact of $995,000. Staff recommends approval. I'll entertain a motion.
Ron Newell, Clark County. Approved no for approval.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for approval from Ron Newell. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Scott, and everyone else that joined the call. Appreciate you participating today. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
And everyone.
Bye-bye.
Item 15 is to discuss the Citizens Advisory Committee tour of district facilities and take action as deemed appropriate. Mr. Chair, as you know, we normally will schedule a bus tour of our facilities every other year. That is due in 2021, but with the pandemic and the need for social distancing, et cetera, we're of the belief that it's probably not a good idea to do a tour this year. So we're asking that we can postpone that at least 1 year to 2022 when it's a little safer to do so. We just wanted to let the committee know that and get any thoughts you might have on that, and maybe give the staff some direction.
I agree, Steve. I was thinking the same thing. So even with people that have vaccinations, there's a lot of people that don't, and it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, we talked about doing a virtual tour, but I don't think that's as impactful. I mean, the whole point of it is to get you all out in the field to see these facilities, but we want to do it when it's safe to do so. So if that's okay, we'll just go ahead and postpone the tour until 2022.
Would it make any sense to push it till the fall? I have no problem with waiting until 2022 either.
We can monitor things, but keep in mind that it takes several months to plan this. That you got to reserve a bus and get all the documents prepared. So I don't know if we can pull that together really quick if things turn around in the summer, but we'll kind of keep an eye on it. If we can squeeze it in 2021, we will, but maybe we'll try to, and we try not to do it, we try to take advantage of the weather. So we try to do it in the springtime, I think, generally, so it's not too cold or not too hot. But maybe we'll shoot for like springtime in 2022.
Yeah, forget my thought. It wasn't worth what it took to say it.
That's okay. Appreciate the comments. So with that, we'll just go ahead and postpone the tour, and we'll kind of monitor things, but we'll plan on it. 2022 is probably the next date. Next slide, Tammy. Item 16 is comments by the general public. As noticed on the agenda posting, comments by the general public regarding any issue related to the Regional Flood Control District were to be posted to public comment at regionalflood.org. Jackie, if you could check and see if we had any public comments.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Jackie Ramirez, there are no public comments.
Great, thank you. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes our posted agenda. I'll turn it back over to Chair Newell for adjournment, and I'll wish everyone a happy and safe February.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a safe until next month, and adjourn the meeting at 3:48.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
You.
Thanks.